Hi there. Today I have something on my mind. It's regarding psychological healing and the idea that it's never possible to fully heal, that there will always be pain. And I would like to expand on this a little bit because it sounds so harsh saying it like that. And for me, it's a little easy to just like say it because I've accepted this, I've made peace with it. But I remember when I really suffered a lot. I really struggled. I had a great deal of trauma in my past and a lot of inherited trauma, generational stuff, ancestral stuff, and just living in the world and being part of the collective is traumatic in itself. I mean, just watching TV is traumatic. So I want to explore this a little bit further because I don't want those who are looking for some relief from the pain to feel disheartened by this concept that it's not possible to fully heal. So I think it would be more accurate to say that it's not possible to get to a point in this life where nothing ever hurts again. Like, as long as we're alive, sometimes things are going to hurt. And at the same time, there's also a great deal of bliss to be found, a great deal of serenity, a great deal of happiness, a great deal of joy, exuberance, ecstasy. That's all there to experience, but we can only experience that intensity to the extent that we are also willing to experience the intensity of pain, suffering, anguish. And real healing isn't about not feeling pain anymore. It's actually about releasing trapped traumatic energy from the nervous system. Because when we experience something that's traumatic, if we don't have an opportunity at the time to, fight back somehow, run somehow, handle it in some way that would be natural for us to handle it, what happens is it gets trapped in our nervous system and it doesn't go away. It just stays there indefinitely, and we can pass that on to our children. So we have trapped trauma from generations and generations and generations of our ancestors trapped in our bodies, like physiologically, literally. Like, this is all scientifically proven stuff. This isn't like spiritual woo that I'm even talking about right now. I'll get into that stuff in a little bit. But just scientifically, psychologically, this is how it is. So part of the process of healing is to, let me back up. The reason that we embark on healing is because we're carrying around this great burden of suffering with us, and we want to release it. And it feels right to do so. It feels good to do so. It frees us up in so many ways, and it puts us in a position to encourage others to do the same, not even by interacting with them, but just by existing. Like, all we have to do is exist in a somewhat more healed state, and just the energy of that. And if not the energy, then being a role model in the way we the way we manage our nervous systems, the way we regulate ourselves. Just that is huge, and it heals the entire human collective. It heals the planet itself, herself, when we do that. So basically, what I'm getting at is that the process of healing, it does release enormous painful burdens, and it's well worthwhile to do it. However, there will always be more. And what ends up happening at a certain point is that you recognize sometimes that whatever you're feeling right now isn't even yours, that you're like, what is this? Like, why would I be feeling this way? And it kind of doesn't really matter, like, why. The tools that can be learned for how to process feelings apply whether they're your feelings you're feeling or not. And just being a part of the human collective means that we're going to feel stuff that's not ours sometimes. And when we process that, we're not just healing ourselves, we're healing the whole collective. This is sacred work. This is a big deal. This is what we came here to do, a lot of us. So it's not that we can't find healing, it's that the healing work, as long as we're alive, it's still there to be done. However, there comes a point where it's not such a big, huge, painful, all-encompassing thing anymore. There comes a point where every now and then something comes up, you move through it, and then it's gone. And then you get back to enjoying your day, and that's just all there is to it. So in a way, psychological healing isn't about releasing the pain, though certainly pain is released. It's about developing the tools to hold space for very intense pain and then release it and have it be gone, healed, transmuted. And when we do this, like I said, it doesn't just impact us, it impacts everybody else too. And there comes a point where you don't always have to do this, like there comes a point where you learn how to balance life so that there's more joy and pleasure and all of the wonderful things that we love to feel, where there's more of that most of the time than there is pain. But when pain does come up, it's okay, so healing is more about making peace with pain than it is with and knowing how to flow with it. It's more about knowing how to flow with pain and not resisting it, how to open into the pain instead of bracing against it. That works for physical pain too, I might add. So it's more about that than it is to just get rid of all the pain and be done with it forever. Now, there is another thing that a lot of spiritual masters talk about how you don't have to suffer anymore, and that is a thing. So the trick with that is that once you know who you are, like really, truly, deeply know who you are, whatever is happening, you can usually connect to that and feel that deep inner peace no matter what's going on the surface. And even though something might hurt on the surface, there isn't suffering at this place deep inside, and you can rest there. However, the pain is still there. It still needs to get processed and released. So it's not like we get to just hide from it forever. It's that there's physical and psychological pain that, as long as we're in human form, as long as we're here in the world of form, it's going to come up sometimes. It's just the nature of life. Sometimes, it feels awesome. Sometimes it feels horrible. And just flowing with the changes and knowing that nothing lasts forever is kind of what it's all about. And at least all of this, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience here. Of course, as always, I feel the need to include that statement in everything that I say. But basically, the escape from suffering that can be done on a spiritual level, even during a lot of really painful things. It's possible to retreat into yourself, into who you truly are deep down inside, and just be there and rest there. That's certainly a possibility. However, if you do that always and don't address the pain, it just grows, and there comes a point where it demands your attention, and that's not an option anymore. And when we try to just retreat into that place of spiritual bliss, anytime there's anything uncomfortable, it's called the spiritual bypass. And it's something that a lot of people do. Spirituality is kind of popular nowadays, really. Like a lot of the planet is waking up, and that's wonderful. But a lot of them are at this place of being enamored with the bliss and wanting to live there always. And that's just a step in the process, and it's totally natural. There's nothing wrong with it. But eventually what ends up happening is it just doesn't work anymore. You know, something comes up, life demands that we face something, and it might be something we picked up from the collective. It might be a set of circumstances that we face. It might be some of our own childhood stuff that we didn't know was even there before, because we didn't have the tools to deal with it, or we were too busy dealing with other things. And then once we're able to deal with it, now suddenly we have access to it, and now we get to process that and move through that. And you know, it's been asked, like, what's the point in even doing this painful shadow work if we can never finish, if we're never fully healed? Like, why do it at all? Well, why eat if you're just going to get hungry again? I mean, just because there's no final end to it in the world of form doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile, and doesn't mean that you're not really expanding and increasing the quality of life by doing it. Every time you do it, it's a sacred thing. And like I said, you're not just healing yourself, you are healing everybody when you do that. So does the healing ever stop? No. However, there does come a point where you recognize that healing isn't the only thing to do in life. And you don't have to focus on it all that intently. You know, if there's some healing to be done, it comes up. So this might sound a little bit strange, but all right. So there is a healing modality. It was actually developed as a form of trauma therapy, but it's hands down the most effective healing modality of any type I have ever seen. It's called IFS. Excuse me, it stands for Internal Family Systems. And if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out with the little girl, and you can see like different parts of her inside of her, and they're like these characters that are, you know, they each have their own personality, their own agenda, their own thoughts, their own feelings. And there's a control panel that like decides what her body is going to do and like how she's going to act, and they take turns using the control panel. Sometimes multiple parts work together to control the control panel. Like that is actually how the inside works. Like that is what our psyches are like. We have distinct personalities or parts inside of us, characters that are very well, they're fascinating. They're like endlessly fascinating. I don't think I could ever get bored again in my whole life, because there's an entire world inside of me. Like whatever you know about your personality, about who you are, it's nothing. There's always just an immense amount more inside, and like there's not enough time in this life to get through all of it. So I kind of think of it as being like there actually is literally a world inside of us, and like our true self, like who we really are at our core, is like a little bit like the deity of the world in a way, and then different parts interact with that deity in different ways. So like some will interact with the deity, will pray, will listen to the deity, and others just go about their lives and do their thing. And it's a little bit like that, like not to I don't know, there's a part of me that's like a little bit uncomfortable with this analogy, like it's a little bit like sacrilegious or something like that. I don't know. in any case, just as an analogy, basically it's like, do all of the people on earth pray? No. But you know, the ones that do, like, they do when they're ready to do it, and as much as they're ready to do it at that point in time. And you can't force people to pray. You can't force people to come to you for help. And it's a lot like that inside, like the different parts that we have inside of us. Not all of them are willing to talk to us. Not all of them want to talk to us. And even if we try to get their attention and try to interact with them, they might not be willing to. They might just absolutely refuse, or they might not even acknowledge that we're trying to do it. And that's fine. So what ends up happening is, as much as we as much work as we do with the parts that come forward to us, and have pains that they're dealing with, or ask for help with something, or get our attention because they're driving our bodies, you know, they're at the control panel. So we notice what they're doing and we say, hey, what you doing? You know, like, as much as that happens, there's an entire world there. And even if we get on like really good terms and do all this unburdening of past trauma, and you know, all of the parts that we know about are like super happy, healthy, you know, they just want to paint, or they're really inspired to like work with disadvantaged people in the world around us, or you know, whatever it is that they want to do, if like, there's always going to be more, basically, is what I'm saying. And that doesn't mean that life is always going to be just like so much pain and suffering, and that we can never experience spiritual bliss, because that is always available to us. Sometimes when our nervous systems are really dysregulated, it's hard to access that, but I've got a bunch of tools that allow me to process that and move through it and get to the point where I can access it again pretty quickly, like within, like, certainly in less than a day, usually within an hour at the very, very most. So like I can go into very deep pain. The exception is if I'm in an environment that is just excruciatingly painful for me energetically. In a situation like that, like sometimes it just swallows me up, and the thing that I need to do in order to heal that is get out of that environment. So I'm not saying that it's possible to move through any pain anywhere under any circumstances within an hour. I'm saying that in most situations, you know. And there's an example that comes to mind. Well, there's a bunch of examples that come to mind if you explore the deities from different religious traditions around the world and different mythologies. You'll see that like these deities definitely had their share of suffering, and these are deities, you know. It's not like they just felt great all of the time and never had any challenges or struggles ever. You know, they struggled like anyone else. You know, they exist in the world of form, even if it's like energetic form rather than physical form. But in any case, there's a particular example that comes to mind, and that would be Jesus. You know, very enlightened guy, right? In the days leading up to his death, he certainly had a lot of processing to do. He knew what was coming, and he had to work through that. And he experienced a lot of pain and suffering, and then the actual crucifixion, lots of pain and suffering. So it didn't matter how enlightened he was, he experienced pain. He was at peace with the pain once he made peace with it. But even Jesus had to, you know, go into the desert for 40 days and nights to make peace with the pain of what he knew was coming in order to face it, you know. So it's not like being enlightened saved him from having any kind of inner conflict or struggles or processing to do. You know, he had pain that he had to work through. So anyways, I am going to wrap this up now. I want to say one more time, this is just my understanding of my experience. If it doesn't resonate, it's not for you. So anyways, thanks for watching.